Hello, back again with me. So we're gonna read again. I already read for 1 hour today, so I promised that I'm going to read for 2 hours today. So we're gonna do that. It's currently 1:45, and we're gonna finish by 2:45. To be honest with you, I'm a little tired, but a commitment is a commitment. A promise is a promise, and we're gonna have to do that. Let's go. Get Away by Frederick Pohl. I'm currently in chapter 23. By the way, okay, this is 147. Okay, so 247, I guess. See you in 247. Yeah, drink first. How do you really feel about Dane, Bob? How the hell do you think I feel? He seduced my girl. That's a strangely old fashioned way to put it, Bob. And it happened an awfully long time ago. Sure it did, Siegfried. Sure it did. Siegfried strikes me as being unfair. He set up rules and he doesn't play by them. I say indignantly, cut it out, Siegfried. All that happened a long time ago, but it isn't being a long time ago for me because I've never let it come out. It's still brand new inside my head. Isn't that what you're supposed to do for me? Let all the old stuff inside my head come out of it so I can dry up and blow away and not cripple me anymore. I'd still like to know why it stays so brand new inside your head, Bob. Oh Christ, Siegfried. This is one of Siegfried's stupid times. I can't handle some complex kinds of input, I guess. When you come right down to it, he is only a machine. He can't do anything he isn't programmed to do. Mostly he just responds to keywords, well, with a little attention to meaning, sure, and to nuance as far as it is expressed by voice tone or by what the sensors in the pad and straps tell him about my muscle activity. If you were a person instead of a machine, you'd understand, I tell him. Perhaps so, Bob. To get him back on the right track, I say, it is true that it happened a long time ago. I don't see why you're asking beyond that. I'm asking you to resolve a contradiction I perceive in what you say. You've been saying that you don't mind the fact that your girlfriend Clara has sexual relations with other men. Why is it so important that she did with Dane? Dane didn't treat her right. And good God, he certainly didn't. He left her stuck like a fly in amber. Is it because how he treated Clara, Bob? Or is it something between Dane and you? Never. There was never anything between Dane and me. You did tell me he was bi, Bob. What about the flight you took with him? He had two other men to play with. Not me, boy. No, I swear. Not me. Oh, I say, trying to calm my voice enough to make it reflect the very mild interest I really felt in his stupid subject. To be sure, he tried to put the make on me once or twice, but I told him it wasn't my style. Your voice, Bob, he says, seems to reflect more anger than your words account for. Damn you, Siegfried! I am really angry now, I admit it. I can hardly get the words out. You get pissed me off with your wild accusations. Sure, I let him put his arm around me once or twice. That's as far as I went. Nothing serious. I was just abusing myself to make the time pass. I liked him well enough. Big, good looking fellow. You get lonesome when. Now what? Siegfried is making a sound, sort of a clearing one's throat. It is how he interrupts without interrupting. What did he just say, Bob? When? When? When you say there was nothing serious between you. Christ, I don't know what I said. There was nothing serious, that's all. I was just entertaining myself to make the time pass. You didn't use the word entertaining, Bob. I, I didn't? Wh- What word did I use? I reflect, listening for the echo of my own voice. I guess I said, amusing myself? What about it? You didn't say amusing either, Bob. What did you say? I don't know. You said, I was just abusing myself, Bob. My defenses go up. I feel as though I had suddenly discovered I had wet my pants, or that my fly was open. I step outside my body and look at my head. What does abusing myself mean to you, Bob? Say, I say, laughing, genuinely impressed and amused at the same time. That is a real Freudian slip, isn't it? You fellows are pretty keen. My compliments to the programmers. Siegfried doesn't respond to my urbane comment. He just lets me stew in it for a minute. Alright, I say. I feel very open and vulnerable, letting nothing at all happen, living in that moment as though it were lasting forever, like Clara stuck in her instant and eternal fall. Siegfried says gently, Bob, when you masturbated, did you ever have fantasies about Dane? I hated it, I say. He waits. I hated myself for it. I mean, not hated exactly, more like despised. Poor goddamn son of a bitch, me, all kinky and awful, beating his meat and thinking about being screwed by his girl lover. I think you really want to cry, Bob. He's right, but I didn't say anything. Would you like to cry? He invents. I love it. Then why don't you go ahead and cry, Bob? I wish I could. Unfortunately, I just don't know how. I was just turning over, making up my mind to go to sleep, when I noticed that the colors on the Hichi guided systems were breaking up. It was the 55th day of my trip, the 27th since the turnover. The colors had been shocking pink for the whole 55 days. Now whorls of pure white form grew clotted together. I was arriving. Wherever I was going turned out to be when I got there, I was arriving. My little old ship, the smelly, hurtful, tedious coffin I had been banging around in for nearly 2 months by myself, talking to myself, playing games with myself, tired of myself, was well below light speed. I leaned over to look at the view screen, now relatively down to me because I had been decelerating, and saw nothing that looked very exciting. Oh, that was a star, yes. There were lots of stars and a scattering of groupings that in no way looked familiar. Half a dozen blues, ranging from bright to hurt the eyes. A red one that stood out more for intensity of hue than luminosity. It was an angry looking red coal, not much brighter than Mars is from Earth, but a deeper, uglier red. I made myself take an interest. It was not really easy. After 2 months of rejecting everything around me because it was boring or threatening, it was hard for me to switch over to a welcoming, vulnerable mode. I switched on the spherical scan and peered out as the ship began to rotate in a scanning pattern. slicing orange peel strips of sky to capture in the cameras and analyzers. And almost at once I get a huge, bright, nearby signal return. 55 days of boredom and exhaustion went out right my mind. There was something either very big or very close. I forgot about being sleepy. I crouched over the view screen, holding on with hands and knees, and then I saw it, a squared off object marching into the screen, glowing all over, pure Hichi metal. It was irregularly slab-sided, with rounded pimples studding one of the flat sides. And the adrenaline began to flow, and visions of sugar plums danced in my head. I watched it out of sight, and then hauled myself over to the scan analyzer, waiting to see what would come out. There was no question that it was good. The only question was how good. Maybe extraordinarily good. Maybe Hall Peggy's world all my own, with a royalty in millions of dollars every year all the rest of my life. Maybe only a vacant shell. Maybe the squared off shape suggested it. Maybe that wildest of dreams, a whole big Hichi ship that I could enter into and fly around anywhere I chose, big enough to carry 1,000 people and 1,000,000 tons of cargo. All those dreams were possible. And even if they all failed, if it was just an abandoned shell, all that it needed was one thing inside it, a little doodad, one gadget, one woozy that nobody had ever found before that could be taken apart and reproduced and made to work on Earth. I stumbled and raked my knuckles against the spiral gadget, now flowing soft gold. I sucked the, I sucked the blood off them and realized the ship was moving. It shouldn't have been moving. It wasn't programmed to do that. It was just meant to hang in whatever orbit it was programmed to find, and just stay there until I looked around and made my decisions. I stared around, confused and baffled. The glowing slab was firmly in the middle of the view screen and it stayed there. The ship had stopped its automatic spherical scan. I belatedly I heard the distance high yell of the lander motors. They were what was moving me. My ship was targeted for that slab, and a green light was glowing over the pilot seat. That was wrong. The green light was installed on Getaway by human beings. It had nothing to do with the Hichi. It was the plain old people's radio circuit announcing that someone was calling me. Who? Who could be anywhere near my brand new discovery? I thumbed on the TBS circuit and shouted, "Hello?" There was an answer. I didn't understand it. It seemed to be in some foreign language, perhaps Chinese, but it was human, all right. Talk English, I yelled. Who the hell are you? Pause, then another voice. Who are you? My name is Bob Broadhead, I snarled. Broadhead? Confused mumbling of a couple of voices. Then the English speaking voice again. We don't have any record of a prospector named Broadhead. Are you from Aphrodite? What's Aphrodite? Oh Christ, who are you? Listen, this is Gateway 2 control, and we don't have time to screw around. Identify yourself. Getaway 2! I snapped off the radio and lay back, watching the slab grow larger, ignoring the demand of the green light. Getaway 2? How ridiculous! If I had wanted to go to Getaway 2, I would have signed up in a regular course and accepted the penalty of paying royalties on anything I might find. I would have flown out secure as any tourist on a course that had been tested on 100 times. I hadn't done that. I had picked a setting no one else had ever used and taken my risks, and I had felt every one of them, scared out of my brain for 55 bad days. It wasn't fair. I lost my head. I lunged toward the Hichi course director and shoved the wheels around at random. It was a failure I couldn't accept. I was braced to find nothing. I was not braced to find I had done something easy for no reward at all. But what I produced was a bigger failure still. There was a bright yellow flash from the course board, and then all the cars' colors went black. Mm. The thin scream from the lander motor stopped. The feeling of motion was gone, the ship was dead, nothing was moving. Nothing worked in the Hichi complex, nothing, not even the cooling system. By the time Getaway 2 sent a ship out to haul me in, I was delirious with heat stroke in an ambient temperature of 75 Celsius degrees. Getaway was hot and dank. Getaway 2 was cold enough that I had to borrow a jacket, gloves, and heavy underwear. Getaway stank of sweat and sewers. Getaway 2 tasted like rusty steel. Getaway was bright and loud and full of people. On Getaway 2, there was almost no sound, only 7 human beings, not counting myself to make any. The Hichi had left Getaway 2 not quite completed. Some of the tunnels ended in bare rock, and there were only a few dozen of them. No one had got around to planting vegetation yet, and all the air there was came from chemical processors. The partial pressure of O2 was under 150 millibars, and the rest of the atmosphere was a nitrogen helium mix, not much more than half Earth normal pressure altogether, that made the voices high pitched and left me gasping for the first few hours. The man who helped me out of my lander and bundled me up against the cotton sole, the sudden cold, was a dark, immense Martian Japanese named Norio Ituno. He put me in his own bed, filled me with liquids, and let me rest for an hour. I dozed, and when I woke up, he was sitting there, looking at me with amusement and respect. The respect of someone who had slain a $500 million ship. The amusement was that I was idiot enough to do it. I guess I'm in trouble, I said. I would say so, yes, I agreed. He agreed. The ship is totally dead. Never saw anything like it before. I didn't know a Hichi ship could go like that, he shrugged. You did something original, Broadhead. How are you feeling? I sat up to answer him, and he nodded. We're pretty busy right now. I'm going to have you. I'm going to have to let you take care of yourself for a couple of hours if you can. Fine. Then we'll have a party for you. Party? It was the farthest thing from my mind. For what? Well, we don't meet someone like you every day, Broadhead, he said admiringly and left me to my thoughts. I didn't like my thoughts very much, and after a while I got up, put on the gloves, buttoned up the jacket, and started exploring it. It didn't take long, there wasn't much there. I heard sounds of activity from the lower levels, but the echoes traveled at queer angles along the empty corridors, and I saw no one. Getaway 2 didn't have a tourist trade, and so there wasn't any nightclub or casino, no restaurant that I could find, not even a latrine. Latrine? Latrine, what's that? Latrine.
Latrine.
After a while, that question began to seem urgent. I reasoned that Ituno would have to have something like that near his room, and tried to retrace my steps to there. But that didn't work either. There were cubicles along some of the corridors, but they were unfinished. No one lived there, and no one had trouble to install plumbing. It was not one of my better days. When I finally found a toilet, I puzzled over it for 10 minutes and would guiltily have left it impolitely soiled if I had not heard a sound outside the cubicle. A plump little woman was standing there waiting. I don't know how to flush it, I apologized. She looked me up and down. You're broadhead, she stated. Why don't you go to Aphrodite? What's Aphrodite? No, wait. First, how do you flush this thing? Then, what's Aphrodite? She pointed to a button on the edge of the door, and I thought it was a light switch. When I touched it, the whole bottom of Slima's bowl began to glow, and in 10 seconds there was nothing inside but ash, and then nothing at all. Wait for me, she commanded, disappearing inside. When she came out, she said, Aphrodite's where the money is, broadhead. You're going to need it. I let her take my arm and pull me along. Aphrodite, I began to understand, was a planet, a new one that a ship from Getaway 2 had opened up less than 40 days earlier, and a big one. You'd have to pay royalty, of course, and so far they haven't found anything big. Just the usual Hishi debris, but there's thousands of square miles to explore, and it'll be months before the first batch of prospectors starts coming out from Getaway. You only sent the word back 4 days ago. Have you had any hot planet experience? Hot planet experience? I mean, she explained, pulling me down a drop shaft and calling up to me. Have you ever explored a planet that's hot? No. As a matter of fact, I haven't had an experience at all that counts for anything. One trip, empty, I didn't even land. Pity, she said. Still, there's not much to learn. You know what Venus is like. Aphrodite's just a little bit worse. The primary is a flare star, and you don't want to be caught in the open. But the Hichi digs all, but he, but the Hichi digs are all underground. If you find one, you're in. What are the chances of finding one? I asked. Well, she said thoughtfully, pulling off the cable and down the tunnel. Not all that good, maybe. After all, you're out in the open when you're prospecting. On Venus, they use armored air bodies and they zap around anywhere they want to go. No trouble. Well, maybe a little trouble. But they don't lose very many prospectors anymore. Maybe 1%. And what percent do you lose on Aphrodite? More than that. Yes, I grant you it's higher than that. You have to use the lander from your ship, and of course, it's not very mobile on the surface of a planet. Specifically, a planet with a surface like molten sulfur and winds like hurricanes when they're mild. It sounds charming, I said. Why aren't you out there now? Me? I'm an out pilot. I'm going back to Getaway in about 10 days, soon as I get a cargo loaded or somebody comes in and wants to ride back. I want to ride back right now. Oh, cripes, broadhead. Don't you know what kind of trouble you're in? You broke regulations by messing with the control board. They will throw the book at you. I thought it over carefully, then I said, Thanks. But I think I'll take my chances. Don't you understand? Aphrodite has guaranteed Hichi remains. You could take 100 trips without finding anything like this. Sweetie, I couldn't take 100 trips for anything. Not now, not ever. I don't know if I can take one. I think I have the guts to get back to Getaway. Beyond that, I don't know. I was on Getaway 2 altogether 13 days. Hester Bergowitz, the autopilot, kept trying to talk me into going to Aphrodite. I guess because she didn't want me taking up valuable cargo space on her return flight. The others didn't care. They only thought I was crazy. I was a problem for Itono, who was loosely in charge of keeping things straight on too. Technically, I was an illegal entrant without a dime's worth of per capita paid, and with nothing to pay it with. He would have been within his rights to toss me out into space without a suit. He solved it by putting me on some workloading low priority cargo into Hester's 5, mostly prayer fans and symbols for analysis from Aphrodite. That took 2 days, and then he designated me chief gopher for the three people who were rebuilding suits for the next batch of explorers of Aphrodite. They had to use the Hichi torches to soften the metal enough to bend it onto the suits, and I wasn't trusted with any of that. It takes 2 years to train a person to handle a Hichi torch in close quarters, but I was allowed to muscle the suits and sheets of Hichi metal into position for them, to fetch tools, to go for coffee, and to put the suits on when they were finished and exit into space to make sure they didn't leak. None of them leaked. On the 12th day, two fives came in from Getaway, loaded with happy, eager prospectors bringing all the wrong equipment. The word about Aphrodite had not had time to get to Getaway and back, so the new fish didn't know what goodies that were in store. Just by accident, one of them was a young girl on a science mission, a former student of Professor Hargramet's, who was supposed to make anthropometric studies of Getaway 2. On his own authority, Norio Ituno reassigned her to Aphrodite and decreed a combination welcome and farewell party. The 10 newcomers and I outnumbered our hosts, but they were lacked in numbers. They made up in drinking, and it was good partying. I found myself a celebrity. The new fish couldn't get over the fact that I had slain a Hichi ship and survived. I was almost sorry to leave, not counting of being scared. Ituno splashed 3 fingers of rice whiskey into a glass for me and offered me a toast. Sorry to see you go, broadhead. Sure you won't change your mind? We've got more armored ships and suits than we have prospectors right now, but I don't know how long it's going to last. If you change your mind after you get back, I'm not going to change my mind, I said. Banzai, he said and drank. Listen, do you know an old guy named Bakin? Cheeky? Sure, my neighbor. Give him my regards, he said, pouring another drink for the purpose. He's a great guy, but he reminds me of you. I was with him when he lost his legs, got caught in the lander when we had to jettison, damn near died. By the time we got him to get away, he was all swelled up and smelled like hell. We had to take the legs off 2 days out. I did it myself. He's a great person, all right, I said absently, finishing the drink and holding the glass out for more. Hey, what do you mean? He reminds you of me. Can't make up his mind, Broadhead. He's got a stake that's enough to put him on full medical, and he can't make up his mind to spend it. If he spends it, he can have his legs back and go out again, but then he'd be broke if he didn't score, so he just stays on cripple. I put the glass down. I didn't want any more to drink. So long, Ituno. I'm going to bed. I spent most of the trip back writing letters to Clara that I didn't know if I would ever mail. There wasn't much else to do. Hester turned out to be surprisingly sexual for a small, plump lady of a certain age, but there's a limit to how long that is entertaining, and with all the cargo we had jammed in the ship, there wasn't much room for anything else. The days were all the same: sex, letters, writing, sleeping, and worrying. Worrying about why Shiki back in wanted to stay a cripple, which was a way of worrying in a way I could face about why I did. Siegfried says, You sound tired, Bob. Well, That was understandable enough. I had gone off to Hawaii for the weekend. Some of my money was in tourism there, so it was all tax deductible. It was a lovely couple of days on the Big Island with the 2 hour stakeholders meeting in the morning and afternoons with one of those beautiful island girls on the beach or sailing in glass bottom catamarans, watching the big mantas glide underneath, begging for crumbs. But coming back, you fight time zones all the way, and I was exhausted. Only that it's not the sort of thing that Siegfried really wants to hear about. He doesn't care if you're physically exhausted. He doesn't care if you have a broken leg. Mm. He only wants to know if you dream about screwing your mother. I say, I'm tired, alright, Siegfried? Well, why don't you stop making small talk? Get right into my beautiful feelings about Ma. Did you have any, Bobby? Doesn't everybody? Do you want to talk about them, Bobby? Not particularly. You wait and I wait too. Siegfried has been being cute again, and now his room is fixed up like a boy's room from 40 years ago. Crossed ping pong paddles, hologram on a wall, a fake window with a fake view of Montana Rockies in a snowstorm. In a snowstorm. A hologram cassette shelf of boys' stories on tape, Tom Sawyer and Lost Rise of Mars. And I can't read the rest of the titles. It is all very homey, but not in the least like my own room as a boy, which was a tiny, narrow, and almost filled by the old sofa I slept on. Do you know what you want to talk about, Rob? Civic probes gently. You bet. Well, no, I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know. I do know. Something had hit me on the way back from Hawaii. Very hard. As a 5 hour flight. Half the time I had spent drenched in tears. It was funny. There was this lovely happy howl girl flying east in the seat next to me, and I had decided right away to get to know her better. And the stewardess was the same one I had before, and she and I already knew better. So there I was, sitting at the back of the first class session of the SST, taking drinks from the stewardess, chatting with my pretty happy Howley. And every time the girl was drowsing or in the ladies' room, and the stewardess was looking the other way, racked with silent, immense, tearful sobs. And then one of them would look my way again, and I would be smiling, alert, and on the make. Do you want to just say what you're feeling at this second, Bob? I would in a minute, Siegfried, if I knew what it was. What don't you know, really? Can you remember what is in your head while you weren't talking just now? Sure, I can. Oh, hell, Siegfried, I guess. I was just waiting to be coaxed. I had an insight the other day and it hurt. Oh, wow, you wouldn't believe how it hurt. I was crying like a baby. What was the insight, Bobby? I'm trying to tell you. It was about, well, it was partly about my mother. It was also about, Dan Mechnikov. I had this, I had, I think you're trying to say something about the fantasies you had of having anal sex with Dane Mechnikov, Bob. Is that right? Yeah, you remember good, Siegfried. When I was crying, it was my mother, partly. You told me about that, Bob. Right. And I close out. Siegfried waits, I wait too. I suppose I want to be coaxed to more. And after a while, Siegfried obliges me. Let's see if I can help you, Bob, he says. What do crying about your mother and your fantasies about anal sex with Dane have to do with each other? I feel something happening inside of me. It feels as though the soft, wet inside of my chest is starting to bubble into my throat. I can tell that when my voice comes out, it is going to be tremulous and desperately forlorn if I don't control it. So I try to control it, although I know perfectly well that I have no secrets of the sort from Siegfried. He can read his sensors and know what is going on inside me from the tremble of a triceps or the dampness of a palm. But I make the effort anyway, in the tones of a biology instructor explaining a prepared frog. I say, "See, Siegfried, my mother loved me. I know it. You know it. It was a logical demonstration. She had no choice." And Freud said once that no boy who is certain he was his mother's favorite ever grows up to be neurotic. Only, please, Robbie, this isn't quite right. And besides, you're intellectualizing. You know, you really don't want to put in all these preambles. You're stalling, aren't you? Other times I would tear the circuits out of his hips for that, but this time he has my mood gauged correctly. Alright, but I did know that my mother loved me. Don't, she couldn't help it. I was her only son. My father was dead. Don't clear your throat, Siegfried. I'm getting into it. It was a logical necessity that she loved me, and I understood in that way with no doubt at all in my mind, but she never said so. Never once. You mean that never in your whole life did she say to you, "I love you, son"? No, I scream. Then I get control again. Or not directly, no. I mean, once when I was like 18 years old and going to sleep in the next room, I heard her to say one of her friends, girlfriends, I mean, that she really thought I was a tremendous kid. She was proud of me. I don't remember what I'd done, something, won a prize or got a job, but she right that minute was proud of me and loved me and said so, but not to me. But not to me. Please go on, Bob. I am going on. Give me a minute. It hurts. I guess it's what you call primal pain. Please don't diagnose yourself, Bob. Just say it. Let it come out. Oh, shit. I reach for a cigarette and then stop the motion. That's usually a good thing to do when things get tight with Siegfried, because it will almost always distract him into an argument about whether I am trying to relieve tension instead of dealing with it. But this time I am too disgusted with myself, with Siegfried, and even with my mother. I wanted to get it over with. I say, "Look, Siegfried, here's how it was. I loved my mother a lot, and I knew she loved me, but she wasn't very good at showing it." I suddenly realized I have a cigarette in my hands, and I'm rolling it around without lighting it, and wonders to say Siegfried hasn't even commented on it. I plunge right on. "She didn't say the words to me. Not only that, it's funny, Siegfried, but you know, I can't remember her even touching me. I mean, not really. She would kiss me goodnight sometimes on the top of the head, and I remember she told me stories, and she was always there when I needed her. But I have to stop for a moment to get control of my voice again, and I inhale deeply and evenly through my nose, concentrating on breath flow. "But you see, Siegfried," I say, rehearsing the words I have time, and pleased with the clarity and balance with it I deliver them. She didn't touch me much, except for one way. She was very good to me when I was sick. I was sick a lot. Everybody around the food mines has runny noses, skin infections, you know. She got me everything I needed. She was there, God knows how, holding a job and taking care of me all at once. And when I was sick, she go on, Robbie, say it. Go on, Robbie, say it. I try, but I am still stuck. And he says, just say it in the fastest way you can. Get it out. Don't worry if I understand or if it makes sense. Just get rid of the words. Well, she wouldn't take my temperature. I explained, you know, stick a thermometer to me and she'd hold me for, whatever it is, 3 minutes or so. And then she'd take the thermometer out and read it. I am right on the verge of bawling. I'm willing to let it happen, but first I want to follow this thing through. It is almost a sexual thing. Like when you are getting right up to the moment of decision with some person and you don't think you really want to let her be that much a part of you, but you go ahead anyhow. I save up my voice control, measuring it out so that I won't run out before I finish. Siegfried doesn't say anything, and after a moment, I manage the words. You see how it is, Siegfried? It's funny. All my life now, what is it? Maybe 40 years since then, and I still have this crazy notion that being loved has something to do with having things stuck on my ass. There had been a lot of changes on Getaway while I was out. The head tax had been raised. The corporation wanted to get rid of some of the extra hangers on, like Shiki and me. Bad news, it meant that my prepaid per capita wasn't good for 2 or 3 weeks. It was only good for 10 days. They had imported a bunch of double domes from Earth. Astronomers, xenotacs, mathematicians, even the old Professor Hagramet was up from Earth, bruised from the lift off deltas, but hoping spryly around the tunnels. One thing that didn't change was the evaluation board, and I was impaled on the hot seat in front of it, squirming while my old friend Emma told me what a fool I was. Mr. Hessian was actually doing the telling. Emma only translated, but she loved her work. I warned you you'd fuck up, Birdhead. You should have listened to me. Why did you change the setting? Why did you change the setting? I told you when I found out I was at Getaway 2, I just couldn't handle it. I wanted to go somewhere else. Extraordinarily stupid of you, Broadhead. I glanced at Hyson. He had hung himself up on the wall by his rolled up collar and was hanging there, beaming benignly, hands folded. Emma, I said, do whatever you want to do, but get off my back. Get off my back. She said sunnily, I am doing what I want to do because it's what I have to do. It's my job. You know, it was against the rules to change the settings. What rules? What rules? It was my ass that was on the line. It was my ass that was on the line. The rules that say you shouldn't destroy a ship, Broadhead. I didn't answer, and she chirped some sort of translation to Hissien, who listened gravely, pursed his lips, and then delivered two neat paragraphs in Mandarin. You could hear the punctuation. Mr. Haitian said Emma, that you are a very irresponsible person. You have killed an irreplaceable piece of equipment. It was not your property. It belonged to the whole human race. He lifted a few more sentences and she finished. We cannot make a final determination of your liability until we have further information about the condition of the ship you damaged. You damaged. You damaged. Okay. According to Mr. Itono, he will have a complete check made of the ship at the first opportunity. There were two xenotechs in transit for the new planet Aphrodite at the time of his report. They will have reached Getaway 2 by now, and we can expect their findings probably with the next out pilot. Then we will call you again. She paused, looking at me, and I took it the interview was over. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I said and pushed myself out the door. Thanks a lot. She let me get all the way to it before she said, one more thing. Mr. Ituno's report mentions that you worked on loading and fabricating suits on Getaway 2. He authorizes a per diem payment to you amounting to, let me see, $2,500. And your out captain, Hester Burgois, has authorized payment of 1% of her bonus to you for services during the return flight, so your account has been credited accordingly. I didn't I didn't have a contract with her, I said surprised. No, but she feels that you have a share. A small share, to be sure, altogether. She looked on the bib. It comes to 2,500 plus 2,500, $8,000 to your account has been credited with. $8,000? I headed for a drop shaft, grabbed an up cable, and pondered. It was not enough to make any real difference. It certainly would not be enough to pay the damages they would soak me for messing a ship. There wasn't enough money in the universe to pay that. If they wanted to charge me full replacement cost, there was no way to replace it. On the other hand, it was $8,000 more than I had. I celebrated by buying myself a drink at Blue Hell. While I was drinking it, I thought about my options. The more I thought about them, the more they dwindled away. They would find me culpable, no doubt about that, and the least that asks me would be somewhere in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, I didn't have it. Might be a lot more. But that didn't make any difference. Once they take away all you have, there isn't anything left anyway. So when you came right down to it, my $8,000 was rarely gold. It could vanish the morning dew. As soon as an attacks report came in from Getaway 2, the board would reconvene, and that would be the end of that. The end of that. So there was no particular reason to stretch my money. Might as well spend it. There was no reason either to think about getting back to my old job as an ivy planter, even assuming I could get it, with Shiki fired from his job as straw boss. The minute they made a judgment against me, my credit card balance would disappear. So would my prepaid per capita payment. I would be subject to immediate defenestration. If there happened to be an earthbound ship in port at the time, I could just get on board, or sooner or later I would be back in Wyoming looking down from my old job at the foot mines. If there wasn't a ship, then I was in big trouble. I might be able to talk the American cruiser, or maybe the Brazilian one, if Francie Herrera was in a position to pull the strings for me, into taking me abroad for a while until a ship showed up, or I might not. Considered carefully, the chances were not very helpful. The very best thing I could do would be to act before the board did, and there were two choices. Two choices. I could take the next ship in port back to Earth and the food mines without waiting for the board's decision, or I could ship out again. There were two lovely choices. One of them meant giving up every chance for a decent life forever, and the other one scared me out of my mind. Getaway was like a gentleman's club in which you never knew what members were in town. Louis' forehand was gone. Her husband Cess was patiently holding the fort, waiting for her or their remaining daughter to return before shipping out again himself. He helped me move back into my room, which had been temporarily occupied by three Hungarian women until they had shipped out together in three. Moving took no great effort. I didn't own anything anymore, except that I had just bought in the commissary. The only permanent feature was Shiki Bakin, unfailingly friendly and always there. I asked him if he had heard from Clara. He had not. Let's go out again, Bob. It is the only thing to do. Yeah, I didn't want to argue it. He was incontestably right. Maybe I would, I said. I wish I weren't a coward, Chicky, but I am. I just don't know how I can make myself get into a ship again. I don't have the courage to face 100 days of fearing death every minute. He chuckled and hopped off the chest of drawers to pat my shoulder. You don't need so much courage, he said, flapping back to his chest. You only need courage for one day just to get in a ship and go. Then you don't have to then you don't have to have courage anymore because you don't have any more choice. I think I could have done it, I said, if Mechnikov's theories about the color codes had been right. But some of the safe ones are dead. It was only a statistical matter, Bob. It is true that there is a better safety record now and a better success record too. Only marginal, but yes, better. The ones that died are just as dead. Still, perhaps, I will talk to Dane again. He's out. When? Around when you left. I thought you knew. I thought you knew. I had forgotten. Wonder if he found the soft touch he was looking for. Scratch his chin with his shoulder, keeping himself balanced with lazy ring strokes. Then he hopped off the chest and fluttered over two piezophone. Let's see, he said, and punched buttons. The locator board jumped into view on screen. Launch 88, 173, he read. Bonus 150,000. That's not much, is it? I thought it was going for something bigger. Well, he didn't get it. Says here he came back last night. Since Mechnikov had halfway promised to share expertise with me, it made sense for me to talk to him. But I wasn't feeling sensible. I got as far as checking out that he had returned without a fine and with nothing to show his efforts but the bonus. I didn't go to see him. I didn't do much of anything, in fact. I hung around. Gateway is not the most amenity filled place to live in the universe, but I found things to do. It bit the food mines. Each passing hour brought me an hour closer to the time when the Xenotax report would arrive. But I managed not to think about it the most of the time. I nursed drinks in Blue Hell, making friends with the tourists, the visiting cruiser crews, the returnees, the new fish that kept coming up from the sweltering planets, looking, I guess, for another Clara. None showed up. I read over the letters I had written her on the trip back from Getaway 2, and then I tore them up. Instead, I wrote a simple, short note to apologize and tell her that I loved her, and I took it down to radio if off to her on Venus. But she wasn't there. I had forgotten how long the slow Hoffman orbits took. The locator office identified the ship she had left on easily enough. It was a right angle orbiter, which spent its whole life changing deltas to rendezvous uh, with plane of the ecliptic flights between the planets. According to the records, her ship had made a rendezvous with a Mars-bound freighter and then a Venus-bound high-G luxury liner. She had presumably transferred to one of them, but they didn't know which, and neither of them would reach its destination for a month or more yet. I sent duplicate copies to each ship, but there wasn't any answer. The closest I came to a new girlfriend was a gunner third from the Brazilian cruiser. Francie Herrera brought her around. My cousin, he said, introducing us, and then privately later, you should know, Rob, that I do not have a that I do not have family feelings about my cousins. All the crews got short leave on Getaway from time to time, and while, as I have said, Getaway was in Waikiki or Kane, bit the bare bones of a combat vessel. Susie Herrera was very young. She said she was 19, as was supposed to be at least 17 to be in the Brazilian Navy at all, but she didn't look it. She did not speak much English, but we did not need much language in common to drink at Blue Hell. And when we went to bed, we discovered although we had very little conversation in a verbal state, we communicated beautifully with our bodies. But Susie was only there 1 day a week, and that left a great deal of time which needed destroying. I I tried everything: a reinforcement group hugging, working out loves and hostilities on each other, old Hagermet's lecture series on the Hichi, a program of talks on astrophysics with a slant toward earning science bonuses from the corporation. By careful budgeting of my time, I managed to use it all up, and decision was postponed day by day. 1 hour is done. I guess so. It's like 59 minutes actually. Another 10 seconds before an hour, but it's still a. After this is like quite a long passage. So I'm just gonna stop here and end our reading session. Get away, Frederick Paul. See you next time.